I'm working to build a cashew nut value chain that is inclusive here in Tanzania. I don't know if many of you in this room know, but Tanzania is the fourth largest producer of cashews in the world. But we export 90% of that crop as a raw product in the shell. It goes to countries like India and more recently to Vietnam, where it's processed and then re-exported to developed markets like Europe and the US. What I'm trying to do here in Tanzania with our company, which is YYTZ Agro Processing, is we've built a cashew processing facility in Zanzibar. That's our flagship factory. We're also working with rural cashew farmers in Mtwara and Lindi to help them add value to their own crop. So what we're doing is we're building a cashew farmer processing center in Mtwara. We're starting later this year to do construction. And essentially, we'll have storage units for farmers to be able to come and store their products. We'll have semi-automatic shelling machines where farmers are able to come and now remove the shell from their own crop, and we purchase that from them at a higher price. So we're trying to bring these farmers into this cashew nut value chain and make it an inclusive chain where they can earn more income, and hopefully we can help transform some of their livelihoods. Now, when we work with these cashew farmers, our goal is that 3, 4, 5 years from now, his life should be completely different. So I treat my farmer as important, or if not more important, than my customer. Because without him, I don't have a business. So we try to give our farmers training on business management skills, financial literacy. We make sure that we open bank accounts for them so that we pay them through the bank so they can start building up a formal financial history. We need these farmers to be part of this formal financial structure so that we can finance this value chain. Now, our farmers, we found that there's a gap in knowledge when it comes to good agricultural practices. So this means like pruning, grafting, how to grow seedlings, spacing on the farm. So we're working with the Research Institute in Mtwara, which is called Naliendele Agricultural Research Institute, and trying to take some of that knowledge and ensure that it reaches the farmers. So access to knowledge is very important. We heard Fahad talking about access. So access to knowledge for farmers and ensuring that they have the know-how so that they can improve their farms, improve their income, and hopefully transform their lives in rural Tanzania. I'm going to share some insights from my journey as a young entrepreneur here. Hopefully we can have a discussion and see how can we improve the environment and maybe make it easier for other young entrepreneurs that are coming up in this time. When I was starting my business and I was researching cashew processing, cashew farming, I found a very valuable resource in a very unlikely place. I found a cashew farming financial model and business plan on the Queensland government website in Australia. Now, this is significant because Australia doesn't produce any cashews, whereas Africa, we account for more than 50% of global cashew production, but I wasn't able to find any kind of resource from any of the countries in Africa. On this website in Australia, I was able to download a financial model that I could input my numbers. I could quickly assess the profitability and feasibility of a cashew farming venture. This information is powerful. So my question is, how can we make information accessible to young people through platforms like Shule Direct? I would love to see agricultural information on a platform like that, where a young person can go and get information on, let's say, the economics or startup costs of a cashew farm. What is the feasibility? How many acres do I need if I want to achieve an income of, let's say, 50 million per annum? These are the kind of data that we can provide a young person so that they can now make informed decisions in what kind of ventures they want to go into. There's a professor called Mandi Rukuni from Zimbabwe who I heard speak at a conference in June. He said information becomes knowledge at the point of action. So for young people, how can we make this information accessible to them so that they can now take that information, act on it, and start creating knowledge? And then we can make that knowledge now available to other young people so that they can see that this is how it can be done. And this is how we can start building value for our young people. A concept that I learned from Toyota Motor Corporation is called Genshi Genbutsu. It's something that I practice, I've internalized, and I apply to my business, to my life. It means going to the source and understanding for yourself. So when I was now learning about cashew processing, I needed to understand, why are we not processing these cashews here in Tanzania? So that meant going to the cashew producing regions, which is in the southern part of Tanzania, in Mtwara and Lindi, meeting with farmers, meeting the auctions where these cashews are sold, going to the regulatory authorities, and now trying to understand the whole regulatory framework. Because as we know, in countries like Tanzania, there's a lot of regulations that we have to be aware of if we're going to do business here. So once I was able to understand the local market system, I needed to also understand the global market system, because cashew is a crop that is traded globally. So I needed to know, who are the biggest exporters of cashew? Well, if you want to know, Ivory Coast is the biggest producer of raw cashews in the world. Vietnam is the largest producer of processed cashews in the world. India is second. Now, Vietnam, they recently passed India, so I needed to find out, how did they do that? And if they're the biggest processing country in the world, how are they processing? So I went to Vietnam. I went to visit one of the top 5 processing companies there. I wanted to really learn, how are they processing their cashews? Learn from their best practices, take those practices and lessons, and then apply them to my own business. I'm not trying to just be a cashew processor. I want to be the best cashew processor. And I want to build this cashew nut value chain. So I have to learn from the best. Now, when we talk about all of this knowledge and research that I did, I went and I wrote a business plan, and I said, yes, I'm going to come back to Tanzania. I'm going to take this to the bank, and there's no way they won't fund me, right? Just like the ice cream. So, I mean, the banks here, they started off, the default answer is no. And it's no for 3 main reasons. One, you're new. It's a new business, right? We can't fund you. Second, you're young. I don't know if you know what you're doing. Third is, we don't think cashews can be processed in Tanzania. Why are people not doing it? I'm like, yes, it's a very good question. So now, when having these discussions with the banks, I started understanding a little bit, and I realized that there was no way I was going to convince a bank to lend me money if I couldn't prove to them that there was a market for this product. So I started looking for a market. From my research, I learned that the largest cashew importers in the world are the United States and Europe. And in Europe, the largest importing country is the Netherlands. So what I did, I simply researched importers in those countries. I emailed them, cold emailed them, introduced myself, said, hey, I'm Fahad, I'm a young entrepreneur, I'm trying to set up this cashew processing facility. I'd love to have a conversation with you and see, if I get this up and running, can I supply you with cashews? Some of these companies replied, some didn't. There was one company in Netherlands that did reply. It's a multinational company, and we started this conversation. They eventually came to Tanzania. We had a meeting, and I told them that, look, the bank isn't going to give me any money if I can't prove that I have a market. So even though we're having these discussions, I need this in writing. So they said, okay, what do you need? I said, okay, I need some kind of letter of intent or a memorandum of understanding. I need something to prove that if I do set up this venture, that you guys will buy from me. So the bank said, the buyer said, okay, sure, no problem. So I took that and I was like, okay, this is it. The bank has to give me money now because I have everything that they need. But it wasn't the case. So the bank said no. So I knew that this thing had to happen. I had to do it. I had this desire that I needed to really get into this. So we funded we used our own funds, our own savings to set up the factory. Last year we raised $500,000, which we're using to set up the Cashew Farmer Processing Center. And from there, I'd just like to say that I've been very fortunate to also have mentorship, and I've had access to experts in my field. There's a cashew nut expert who has more than 35 years experience, who is a renowned speaker at international cashew conferences. He's an advisor to European and African governments on cashew. And I reached out to him and I said, you know, I'm a young person, I'm trying to learn about cashew. Do you have a few minutes? Could we have a conversation? Maybe I could learn and gain some insights from you. And he kindly obliged. And now we have a conversation on a quarterly basis where I'm able to bounce ideas off of him and really kind of learn from him, take those ideas, and now I can implement them in my business. I just like to close by saying that we need to link our young people to experts and to mentors in their field, people that have been through it, people that have insights and valuable lessons that they can share to these young people so they can avoid the same mistakes. I'd like to end with just a quick anecdote. There's a venture capital fund manager named Chris Sacca. Chris Sacca is the fund manager of maybe the most successful venture capital fund in the history of venture capital. His fund is an early investor in Uber, in Twitter, in Instagram. So they asked him, what are the commonalities that you see amongst these founders that you backed? And he said that what he sees in founders is an inevitability of success. He said that he gave the example of Kevin Systrom from Instagram, who, when he was still coding at Instagram himself, just a one-man team, he knew at 50 million users, he was going to roll out this set of features. So for him, it was going to happen. He was going to reach there. So my question in this discussion that we're going to have today is, how can we make success inevitable for young people? How can we create that environment? Thank you very much for your time.